be commonly standards for any development. They also have some requirements for occupancy standards that meet certain fire code requirements if they're adopted by the state. Staff is recommending that for the larger facilities, that would be the facilities that would be from 9 to 14, that inland you change the code to move from a minor use permit to an administrative permit. That permit process is cheaper. It does provide for an ability to have a public hearing if warranted, and does provide an option for notice. Because the changes would affect all the county, you'd also be changing divisions 2 and 3 of the county code, which are in the coastal zone in the town of Mendocino. The town of Mendocino, you have a minor use permit process, which we could modify and hopefully come up with a cheaper fee for if it's warranted for such facilities. In the coastal zone, you're really limited as to what you can do and what kind of permit process you can have. We do have a standard coastal development permit process that you can go through, and we have, for the purposes of family care unit, reduced the fee for that specific type of permit process, and we would propose to do the same thing for child care facilities. I do think there is some merit to having some public notice. You've seen some examples where neighborhoods do have concerns, and this provides an ability for airing of those concerns. When the Planning Commission reviewed the ordinance changes that we had recommended, they did recommend approval of those processes as they were suggested by staff, and did want to ensure that any costs to the county would be covered, but they did think that an appropriate fee should be set specific to that type of entitlement. With that, I'll try to respond to your questions.
From the board, questions of Mr. Lynch. Supervisor Pinches.
I was looking at the referrals, and it says Department of Health Services never responded. Is that the County Department of Health and Human Services, or at the State Department of Health Service? And I noticed our emergency services, is our emergency services department so busy that they can't respond to these referrals? I just noticed, you know, I mean, that's why we go through the process to get comments and whatnot back. And if we have departments within the county that are not responding, you know, I mean, if they're really busy, but we haven't had an emergency in the last week or two, so I just.
Thank goodness. Other questions from the board?
Yeah,
Supervisor.
Mr. Lynch, I'm not clear. At present, what is required for the 6 children establishment of a home?
Right now, by county code, 6 or fewer is exempt from any permit process. By changes in the state law, it's now 8 or fewer.
So this would be more, I guess, more generous, in other words, give greater freedom to the person who wants to establish a group home.
Correct.
With 8. Doesn't have to get a permit before he could or she could only go up to 6.
Correct.
Is that the heart of this? Because I've read it, and I'm having a little bit of trouble.
The heart of it is
seeing what the state is doing here. I understood there was something in the legislature about a year ago going in the opposite direction, trying to take this out of the hands of local jurisdictions and impose more regulations because of the presence of group homes in multiple units in neighborhoods that were being permitted on the 8+8+8+8 kind of design. This is over in Sausalito, is where this began, or came to my attention. And I'm wondering whether this is some sort of U-turn or Z-turn on that particular route as it made its way through the legislature.
It's my understanding the legislature has been clear that they think that these types of facilities need to be fostered and they need to be blended in with the area, and for 8 or fewer, that there wouldn't be any local control over them. I think if you're getting to 9 to 14, they do build in a permit process. They do talk about over-concentration within certain areas, and that is something that maybe could be addressed through this public hearing process or more of a discretionary process that we're suggesting. But it's my understanding that 8 or fewer is something that's being pushed by the legislature, and that they find that there's a great need for those.
Okay, thank you.
Supervisor Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think, Mr. Lynch, it's important to make sure we're defining terms here. My understanding and my belief about what's before us here today is we're talking about daycare facilities in small schools. This is not anything to do with group homes or extended overnight care. I believe it says it excludes overnight care.
You're right.
And I think that this makes a lot of sense. I believe that there was a case that I was working on the coast that was brought to the attention of your predecessor that dealt with this issue where someone was trying to establish a small school, and it sort of was, the way it was being interpreted is it was a very high fee was being associated with that. So that would allow for educational settings to be created, but still having to go through the permit process for the larger ones, which I believe here is the 9 to 14 as delineated in the government code as having a number of ways to go. So from my review of this, I think that you're going in the right direction, trying to make Mendocino County Code consistent with state law for the smaller units, and then putting in some form of a public process, but being mindful about the associated fees for the larger family daycare homes that might need to be established, but it notices the neighbors. I think it's appropriate to have some type of a permit process, and I think that's what you